What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of At Large Bid here on the 40 Minutes Basketball Network. With it being trade deadline week in the NBA, we decided just to switch up the schedule a little bit this week. So we're starting the week with college ball. Oh, we did have a really big trade today in the NBA, so I can't wait to talk about that later in the week on the
Right.
Bench Mob and also the Shot College crew on Thursday night to give us the trade deadline recap. But with that being said, I'm Tim Daniel here with Taylor Bergfeld. And Taylor, we just got back from watching one of the best teams in the country. The Houston Cougars came to Fifth Third Arena tonight to play Cincinnati Bearcats. They were in the shoe, and they won 80-58, and they were absolutely incredible. Fabian White tonight was awesome with 22 points, was 4 or 5 from 3, 9 rebounds. I mean, didn't shoot threes at all last year, so you can see that kind of step up in his game. Opening tip, you see Taze Moore catches the ball, and he's by himself all of a sudden throwing down a dunk. Houston was unbelievably impressive tonight.
Yeah, I mean, shot out of a cannon. Like, as soon as the tip was in the air, he caught it and just tomahawked it in 2 seconds. Like, it's unbelievable. Yeah, Houston, as advertised, doesn't have Marcus Sasser, down another starter. Team that was in the Final Four. Last year, and they're kind of just rolling this year silently but deadly is kind of how I describe them. And they kind of just picked a great night to have a great shooting night against Cincinnati. Fifth Third was rocking tonight. It was a good crowd, packed house, and unfortunately, the Bearcats tried to give it their best 1-2 punch and just wasn't enough. There was a moment they cut it to 11 right before the half, and it was like, okay, that was a solid run by UC. Jared Davenport comes out and hits a 3 to start the second half. You're like, all right, it's an 8-point game, and just like that, as fast as you could look up, it was 8 points. It was 16 in 2 seconds. So Houston their guards are dynamic. They're up in your face all over the defensive end. Kelvin Sampson is a madman. I mean, his defense, I think they forced 2 or 3 turnovers in a row, got a block shot and got a rebound. And then UC came down and got a layup, and Kelvin Sampson lost his mind. So he expects greatness from them on the defensive end. And he got that tonight in a dominant victory, 80-58. If you're a Bearcat fan, a lot of people, you were working the game. I was sitting in the crowd, for once at the shoe. I was kind of just taking it in with the crowd, but a lot of people around us they weren't devastated. They weren't upset. It was just like, hey, this is a really good team, a top 11 team, in the country. And fortunately, you run into a buzzsaw every now and then. So,
yeah, I'm looking now at the box score and the stat sheet, and to put in context how the night went for the Bearcats, David DeJulius had 25 points.
Mm-hmm.
The second leading scorer was Jeremiah Davenport with 9.
He struggled. I think he had 0 points at half.
3 of 12 from the floor. Yeah.
Houston did a great job just kind of locking him down in the first half. In the second half, he had a lot of open looks. He had 3 to start the second half, like I said, and then missed 2. Wouldn't say wide open. They were pretty deep. I mean, they were really NBA range deep. But on a kick out on an offensive rebound. But you make those, it's a little bit different in a game. But I think from the jump, Houston was all over him. And it's kind of just shows that they were the better team tonight, and probably the cream of the crop in the AAC. So,
yeah. So I had something was sent to me today from my cousin, actually, one of those Fox terrible graphics. But so right now there's 7 teams are in the top 20 in Ken Palm in offense and defense: Gonzaga, Kentucky, Baylor, Duke, Auburn, Arizona, and Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so Houston's number 4 on there right now. I don't know if they went up after the game tonight. I'll pull it
up. Definitely inflating of a game. They played well tonight.
Yeah, they're 20-2. They've won 12 in a row.
Who are their losses to? Alabama, which was a goaltend at the end.
Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah, that was Maui.
Yeah, in Maui.
At the time, we thought it was a bad loss for Houston, and now it looks like it's actually a competitive game. So, yeah, I was blown away. I mean, it's
very impressed.
They quietly have been good all year. Taking care of business in the AAC. They, from a betting standpoint and just a basketball standpoint, when you look at them, when they play bad teams, they demolish them. And I'm not. This isn't calling Cincinnati a bad team, because they're not. It's just when they're playing the lower level of the AAC teams, or playing, out of conference schools that aren't as good as they are, they demolish them. If it's a spread that's 11, 12 points, they usually cover it. It was 6 tonight. I took Cincinnati thinking, good spot for them at home. Sell out all. 2 seconds of that game, I was like,
it was 22-5 at one point.
I was like, Houston, and kind of switching gears here to go to UC. I was really, we texted about it at the game. I was really impressed with David DeJulius. Right, the way he interacts off the ball screen was something that he wasn't doing last year. He's a more confident shooter now.
Mhm.
And this kind of gets into UC's offense. I think they rely too much on the three at some points, but they don't have a post presence to throw the ball down into. Adu is just simply not a guy that you can throw the ball to on the block and try to get a bucket. Victor's kind of a guy that floats out on the perimeter. Not really a strong rebounder, not very strong in general to go up and get, finish through contact, especially
Yeah.
against Houston. But
Odie
David Julius,
Oguama's
an athlete, right? And that's not a
right.
bad thing. It's just he's a kind of a hype guy that gives you effort. But the Julius was great tonight. He was splitting ball screens. Getting in the middle of the lane. That floater that he has is pretty lethal. Hit a
Mhm.
couple big tough shots, right in the teeth of Houston's defenders today. But yeah, I think UC's on the rise. This is kind of the John Newman's a senior. You get the COVID year. Jeremiah Davenport's a junior. You have the pieces that are going to come back next year, and you hope that you build on this foundation going forward. But sometimes you play the best team in the league, and sometimes you take their A game, and it's just you're not up for the punch. So that's kind of where I'm at with Houston. But I would be very, I'm pretty high on this. I mean, recency bias is kind of a huge thing here. So going into the tournament, I think Houston obviously will probably coast to the one seed in the AAC. Probably, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they won the AAC tournament itself, but I think they're a team really, down their two best players, and they're still just phenomenal on both ends of the basket. So, very excited to watch them in March. But I think 2 or 3 seed that they could probably make a Sweet 16, Elite 8 run. I don't know if they're Final Four good like last year because they got really lucky in their bracket last year.
Right.
But I mean, it happens in March, right? You can't control who you play. You just got to take care of business. But I'm with you. I left this game being glowing of Houston, and I think going forward, it's the team that people should probably watch before the tournament starts. So
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about another team that's on a roll right now. Obviously, it pains us a little bit to talk about, but that's Kentucky. Since the Auburn loss, they have won 4 straight, including Mississippi State in overtime, going to Kansas and just destroying them, which we haven't recorded since then.
Yep.
At home against Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt gives them a little run for their money. I'm really impressed, honestly, with how well Stackhouse is coaching for how rough that team is.
I can't talk about UNC guy coaching. I can't right now. We're too early in this. But yeah. They struggled
at Alabama.
Yeah. Kentucky is the best team in the country. As of February 6th, the best team in the country right now. I'm very impressed. Ty Washington is phenomenal. Severe Wheeler is exactly what they need. Keon Brooks has been playing outstanding. That Kansas game was his swan song. He was phenomenal. Oscar is just a menace on the rebounding. Jacob Toppin knows his role. Damian Collins gave him big minutes at Alabama. Kellen Grady is finally realizing that he is on this earth to shoot the basketball, and that is exactly what he needs to do for this offense. So
yeah,
I'm over the moon with this team. It's kind of a veteran team for Cal compared to previous teams. Keon, Oscar, Kellen, you got guys that have been there. Davion Mintz, who's I've been a big Mintz hater. Like I don't think he should see the floor, but he's been phenomenal. The Alabama game, he was great. The Mississippi State game, he was good. But we'll kind of touch on the Kansas game first. Like that game was never close either, right?
No. From the jump, they just went out there and
hit him with a right hook, and it was over early. And I mean, I'm thoroughly impressed. I think this team, the sky's the limit for them. I think there'll be a 1 seed with Auburn. I think your 4 1 seeds right now are probably Gonzaga, Auburn, Kentucky,
Duke.
Yeah, and that's probably fair, right? And I think Kentucky is the best team in the country as of right now. I think they're playing the best. Tough schedule coming up. They play at South Carolina Tuesday, which should be an easy win. But I know they still have to go to Tennessee, have to go to Florida, to Arkansas. So there are 3 good games. But if you're Calipari, this is exactly what you want for your team. Even in a loss, like these guys get battle tested and they persevere and they get through it. Their 2 losses in league play at Auburn, they were winning and Ty got hurt and Severe got knocked out on a screen by Walker Kessler. And then at LSU, same thing. Ty gets hurt, Severe Wheeler gets knocked out on a screen. So as long as they can avoid that, I think the sky's the limit for this team. I was watching last night and I was like, why is Damian Collins getting a lot of run? And as I say that, a backdoor cut that's Ty throws a lob to, and he just absolutely crams it home. Their athleticism is just all over the charts here. Yeah, I'm enamored with this team. Oscar's awesome. Just it's I think they're peaking at the right time. I mean, it's crazy with the Bengals being where they're at, right? We're Cincinnati fans. Like, it's hard for us to realize like that 5 weeks from today, there's a bracket that comes out. Like, and that seems crazy, but it just is what it is, right? Like, we've been kind of, lucky with football that football season's been longer and longer this year. So
Yeah, we're not used to this.
Right, of course not. What's your thoughts on this Kentucky game?
I think the best thing about them is they have 2 point guards and 2
Mhm.
point guards that they can run through. Washington's obviously the best point guard prospect in this draft coming up. He's tremendous. I'd probably put I don't know. Like I think Jaden Ivey has put himself in that like tier 1 with how he's played of late with Paolo, Jabari, and Chet. But I think Ty could potentially be like right there with Johnny Davis as that tier 2.
Mhm.
Whatever happens with Shadon Sharp, obviously that's irrelevant at the moment with how Kentucky's playing. But what, like you said, like what they're getting from those guys, from Wheeler, from Grady, Oscar just being the rebounding monster he is, that's going to get him drafted. Might be second round, might be late second round, but it's going to get him drafted.
Mhm.
It's just, they have all the pieces they need to be successful. Like you mentioned, Keon Brooks just as that wing who can kind of just like give them a lot of effort and is really good defensively on the perimeter. He's been really fantastic. Like you said, so looking right now at KenPom, they have one game the rest of the year where they have a less than 70% chance of like a less than 70% winning chance. And that is at Tennessee. It's at 51. But every other game, South Carolina, they're giving 88%, Florida 89, Alabama 83, LSU 80, Arkansas 70, Mississippi 95, Florida 73.
I think they'll drop one on the road, maybe like an
I do
Arkansas.
too.
But like I said, not a knock. I think this team is great. Oscar reminds me of what Udoka Azubuike was for Kansas in that 2020 year before COVID
Mhm.
shut. Like long-term NBA prospect, probably not, right? And that's okay. But what he does for this team, he's a dominant big guy. He just gets every rebound and he just out muscles you and out effort you and just he is just phenomenal for them. I'm with you on Ty. I think he's great. Severe Wheeler's perfect for this team. Great defender, really pesky defender that nobody really wants to have to go against. And I love Kellen Grady, so it's fun watching him shoot because I think he shoot 8 to 10 threes a game because they look like they're all going in on my end. So
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So yeah, man, I like this team a lot. I'm excited to see how things play out for them. I guess we'll talk about the hell that was our Saturday here at the 48 Minutes Basketball Network of our college basketball teams. Starting bright and early, DePaul goes into Cintas Center and beats Xavier.
without
Unbelievable.
Javon Freeman Liberty,
Yeah, had 7 guys and still won. Kyle Brandon, big Michigan State guy, right? Fit shot callers. They lose by 3 touchdowns at Rutgers. That was crazy. Ron Harper Jr., 17 points.
the rack, man. It's tough to win at the rack.
Yeah. Joe, Indiana guy. They get beat by Illinois pretty bad.
Mhm.
They were in it for a while, and Illinois just went crazy in the second half.
Kofi Coburn, listen, Johnny Davis is great, and he probably is going to win Big Ten Player of the Year, but quit sleeping on my guy Kofi. He's been phenomenal. That Wisconsin game, he had like 35 and 17, and then Indiana, he just bullied Trace Jackson Davis. So
yeah, he did. And then Duke, Carolina was last night. Sorry,
bad, just bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's start with Xavier DePaul. Let's just work our way down. Right? Let's just get through it. It's a nice venting session for both of us. But yeah, so my thing is we've texted, right? Like this year was about Xavier. Their non-conference was they beat Ohio State. They lose to Iowa State. They beat Virginia Tech.
Yep.
Yeah, beat Virginia Tech. Non-conference. They rolled at home. They were kicking ass early. They were blowing teams out. They get into Big East play, and now they're 4th or 5th place in the Big East just because they've struggled and dropped some games that they shouldn't. This is kind of like not being devil's advocate. And listen, my team has my own issues too, so I'm not trying to talk down on another team. But this is kind of where it goes bad for Xavier in previous years under Steele, right? Like non-conference, they get through it. In conference, they just can't beat Villanova twice. They start losing some games that they shouldn't, a la Marquette, even though Marquette's really good, right? But DePaul. So this is kind of where it goes bad, right? Providence is the best team in the Big East, which I don't think either of us saw that coming.
They're like the luckiest. They're literally the luckiest team in the country. Literally, statistics show they're the luckiest team in the country.
But this is where it goes bad for Steele, right? Like early in the year after the Ohio State win, you're like, damn, this team could be a 3, 4, 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. And now, kind of where they're at, if they don't get their act together soon, you're looking at a 7, 8, 9 seed where the worst thing for Xavier, if you're a Xavier fan listening, you don't want the first round of the Big East tournament to be like you have to win to get in, right? Because that's where it statistically goes wrong.
And they're not there. We need to take a step back. Everyone needs to relax.
That win over
Ohio State, loss.
The Virginia Tech win. I mean, they've beaten Marquette at home. They've beaten I don't know. I
Oklahoma
don't know.
State on the road.
Correct. They're fine, right? But they have a tough schedule coming up. It's at
Yes,
UConn,
they
at
do.
Seton Hall. I'm sure they play Providence again at Providence. So these are
Yep.
games that you know you need
UConn twice.
to knock them off. You need to win a couple here just to solidify that tournament status. But yeah, you can be the peacekeeper. You can be the the mediator for Xavier fans. I'm sure they're on the ledge right now, but we're close to the tournament and you're in a gully right now. So kind of tell Xavier fans to relax and give them what you're feeling. And you can be honest. If you're feeling worried, then kind of let's hear it.
I'm not necessarily worried. There's some things that really frustrate me with watching the team. One of them is particularly I just don't understand what Paul Scruggs has been playing of late. He had 21 points yesterday. That looks good, but 2 assists, 5 turnovers. Against Butler, he gets in foul trouble early. And, he's not making the best decisions. Like, it's not the Paul Scruggs that I have gotten accustomed to for 4 years, where the team might not be the best, but look, 2 minutes ago, he's like Jimmy Clausen was at Notre Dame. Like, he'll have some rough games, but if he's got the ball in his hands at the end, like, I feel okay.
Right.
Like, and like Paul, against Ohio State and like things like that, he had those games. But, Paul's just kind of, some of the decision making has been really frustrating. On the other end, of the rest of the roster, you look at like Nate Johnson gets 3 shots. Like, I don't know what he's really struggled for the last few weeks. So I don't know like what's going on there.
Could
Or
be
how
just
they
an
get
emphasis on the teams you're playing, right? They could just know
Yeah.
like, hey man, like we're face guarding him where he's not touching the ball because like, and this is just a little bit deeper issue with him. Like he's not really a guy that can like he can't like get his while dribbling, right? Like he's more like come
Right.
off screens, like positioning. He's very smart with like off ball, like movement and stuff. And he's a guy that like he'll get himself open, he can get a shot off like that. But like for him to create his own shot is something he struggles with. Therefore, at the next level, he's gonna have to get better at. But I'm with you. Like he's a guy that you can't have if he's one of your best shooters, and he is, right? Right. So you can't have him getting 3 shots a game. Same with Kunkel. Like
Yeah,
you need
he
them to
only
shoot.
had 6. He had 6 shots.
You need them to shoot through it, right? Like if it's a slump, they'll get through it. And we've talked about this off air and on air. Like I think Colby Jones is a better guard than Paul Scruggs, but like what Paul has meant to program and what he is for this team, like you kind of just got to roll Scruggs out there. And I'm not saying that his minutes should decrease or anything like that because they shouldn't. It's just it's hard for the alpha to give that status up sometimes, and unfortunately, it seems like that's the case now. So.
Yeah, Steele kind of mentioned something yesterday in his pressure. Like he was pissed. He was definitely pissed, and I understand. And he even mentioned he's like, I don't. He's like, I've got to figure something out. It's like if that means I got to change my starting lineup again, then like we got to change our starting lineup again. Like, Dwan Odom has been really good for a few weeks now. He had 8 points and 5 assists yesterday. It was 4 or 4 from the floor. He's got a really good floater game. Everything he's not as a shooter, I love everything else. Like I think he's an awesome defender. He's a super athlete. But yeah, I just think that, I hope that was a wake up call for them because they certainly are talented enough. But there's just other things too. Like Zach Fremantle has not recovered very well from his injury. He's not played well majority of the season. He's had a game here and there, but like when he starts the game 1 of 9 and he's still taking shots the rest of the way, like that's not promising.
Yeah, and I think my thing is like the losses in the Big East, and the Big East is a good conference, right? I think it's probably the 4th best conference in basketball. That's behind Big 12, SEC, and Big 10, right? Like I think they're far and away better than the ACC. I think but like the losses at home, right? Like losing to DePaul is bad, right? Losing to Providence is not bad if it's at the Dunkin' Donut or what I don't even know what they call their place.
The Dunk, yeah.
The Dunk, right? Like, but at home, right? Losing both those games at home when you still have to go to UConn, to Seton Hall, to Providence, like it puts a bigger emphasis on the games you have to win now. Like, so that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, I don't know 3 weeks ago, we were talking about Xavier being a dark horse for a national championship team. Like, and not just us, like in the Cincinnati area. This is like national
Field
writers.
of 68 mentioned it. Like
Steve Prohm, former coach Jeff Goodman, right? Like these guys are mentioning Xavier like on the rise. And I think, you can still buy low if you believe in Xavier. And I certainly do. It's just, I'm going to need to see them. And all it takes is maybe a good showing at Seton Hall. They might come out and kick their ass, right? And light a fire underneath of them. Steele might get these guys right back on the right ship. But yeah, it's worrisome, you just don't want the season to come down to the Big East tournament or you have to win a couple games because that's where it gets a little hectic. But I think they're fine. I don't know what I haven't looked at any bracketology lately, but I don't know what their projected seed is. I think it's a little too early for that. I think in a couple weeks we'll have a better idea. But people need to realize, like, listen, there are 68 teams that make the NCAA tournament. Like, I promise there are some shitty teams that are going to get in. Carolina is included in that. So, listen, they're going to get them in. Xavier's fine. I think they're not even close to sniffing the bubble.
Yeah, they're not on the bubble. They're not on the bubble.
They have too many good wins not to. Marquette, Ohio State, those are 2 wins that will carry way more weight than people realize. So that's where I'm at with that. So
yeah, I agree. Let's kind of move real quick. So, what do you want to talk about next? You want to go to? We didn't even mention by the fact, like, real quick, Chris Beard going back to Texas Tech was
let's touch on that Tuesday.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. That place was rocking. That's what the COVID year last year and like we really missed about college basketball environments, right? And we touched on that in our preview pods and all this and all that, but like a true just insane atmosphere. Tuesday night in Lubbock, Chris Beard returns, right? And we've always mentioned like he had to take the Texas job. Like you're getting a huge pay increase, better facilities, better program, etc. But I love what Mark Adams has done. I think he should be the Big 12 Coach of the Year. We touched on it after Texas Tech lost at Kansas. How high I am on this team. Terrence Shannon's really good, and they just went into West Virginia and won on Saturday in a really tough environment. But yeah, Beard was booed from the opening tip. That place was rocky. It was a blackout, and Texas Tech went out there and just beat Texas. So very fun game. The Texas Tech fans flipping him off, F you Beard, him getting off the bus, throwing stuff at the bus is crazy.
You sent me the video of that, and I sent you the GIF of Palpatine with the "Let the hate come to consume you."
Yeah, I mean, think about it. If DeAndre Hunter doesn't hit a 3 in the corner, Texas Tech's the national championship. National champion in 2019. Like, we're one play away from him being the head coach of Texas Tech. Like, who knows what happens? But Texas Tech fans have every right to be mad and hate him, and that's what you do. But there'll be a time 10, 15 years down the road, you'll appreciate what that run was and how good that team was. So I think both sides are well warranted. And Beard played right into it, right? He said if they won, he was going to shave his head. So he knew that it was a pretty tough environment. They're my biggest disappointment on the year. Like, they frustrate the hell out of me. They got a good opportunity tomorrow night against Kansas, but I just don't know what it is with that team. Like, I just don't think they mesh very well. So
yeah, I agree. I'm with you. Yeah, Michigan State, I couldn't believe that Ron Harper Jr. just ran them over. I don't really, Texas beats Iowa State pretty bad. That's kind of crazy. But
Baylor and Kansas.
Yeah.
That's like, so Saturday's slate was amazing, right? It was Indiana, Illinois. Good. Indiana, Illinois at 12 o'clock. Who was the 2 o'clock game? I forget now.
Xavier.
Baylor. Yeah, Xavier was at 2. Kansas, Baylor at 4 o'clock. Auburn, Georgia, like that was another game that Auburn squeaks by. Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Alabama, and honest to God, most games turned out to be pretty stinky, right? Because the one team just kicked the other team's ass, and that's no different here in Lawrence. Kansas just absolutely steamrolls Baylor. A game where Kansas, after losing the week before at home against Kentucky, this is a home environment that needed to be rocking, and it was, and they just punched Baylor in the mouth, and Baylor had no answer for it, right? Christian Braun was a great. Akshay Ajbaji was great. McCormick was really good for this team. Like, this is the Kansas team that I still believe in. And I mentioned that they're a team that I could think can win the national title. And if you're a UK fan, you love seeing Kansas run Baylor out of the gym because that solidifies that win you guys had there even better. So, Bill Self doesn't lose at home very often, and when he does, he pretty much rights his wrong the next week. So I was pretty impressed with Kansas yesterday. Baylor. I don't know what I feel about Baylor, right? Like last year, that team was phenomenal, right? And this year, they got up to number 1 in the polls and kind of struggled since, right? They lose at home to Texas A&M, they lose at home to Oklahoma State, then they lose at Kansas, right? So a run that they went on last year just really isn't there this year. Akinjo is really good. Matthew Meyer is really good as well, but I just don't know if they have the horses like they did last year. That's not a downplay because they're really good still, but I think they're a Sweet 16, Elite 8 fringe team, but I don't know if they're top 10 in the country good. And that just might be me being ignorant, but that's kind of how I feel right now after watching them a couple times.
Yeah, I'm there with you, man. I just kind of feel like it feels like it's still such a big open year. You're starting to see like the 6 or 7 best teams, especially like he says, we're getting closer and closer to Selection Sunday. But there's still so many teams that offer just like a pack of the punch. They're just kind of like really impressive and really exciting. And I think that's definitely one of those teams to talk about for that. So let's kind of move real quick to Let's try to see if one of the other games that popped up that I wanted to touch on. My phone is acting up everywhere. So Villanova, UConn, yeah, whatever. Villanova, really good. And then Purdue gets another win.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Jaden Ivey's phenomenal. Michigan is another disappointment team for me.
they are.
They just couldn't get it going. They're probably not going to make the tournament unless they make a run here to end the year. But it started last week. We didn't touch on this because we didn't record last week. But the Michigan State game in Michigan State, right? That's a perfect spot for Michigan to come in and get a win, or ride that high streak that they were on, and they just laid an egg. And when it fool me 7 times, it's my own fault, right? And I think I'm just kind of there with Michigan, where it's like, hey, this team just doesn't have it. The guards that they brought in from the transfer portal, mid-major guards that you come out to play a high level with the Big Ten. Sometimes you have them, sometimes you don't. I think Dickinson's phenomenal. I think Caleb Houston struggled, but I think he's going to be good long-term. But when you don't have very good guards, it's hard to win. And I think Dickinson's kind of kicking himself after, maybe potentially could have had NBA potential last year and then came back on a bad team. So,
yeah, I see that for sure. All right, I'll give you the choice here. Do you want to talk Vanderbilt upset, or do you want to talk Duke Carolina?
Let's talk Duke Carolina. We'll go 5-10 minutes on that. So, right, the biggest thing for Carolina, they were 0-6. Yeah, move the mic. Let me just have my moment, right? Like, Carolina was 0-6 in quad 1 games going into the Duke game, right? So think about the Kentucky game where they were down 28 points. Think about the Purdue game where they lost by 9, but it was 14, 16 points. Think about the Tennessee game where they lost by 18. Think about the Miami game at Miami where they get beat by 20, right? The recurring theme is that when this team gets down and it's early, they quit and they fold. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's toughness or mental, something with the guards that they just, hey, like, we've lost, like, let's just try to get mine and get my tape up for the draft, right? And that's certainly where college basketball is at some points, but the team unity is something's off. So last night, the perfect spot for Carolina. Have to get a quad 1 win to really solidify, like, hey, we're not on the bubble. It's a game for Duke and Carolina. The winner is in first place of the ACC. Like, not just
that's wild.
Not just a top seed Duke in the ACC against 5th place Carolina. Like, no, this is for the number 1 seed in the ACC with a lot of games to go, but Coach K's last game in Chapel Hill, right? I don't know if you knew Coach K's retiring.
What?
Yeah, right. God, if I see that commercial on ESPN one more time, 40 years described by one letter, just kill me. But anyway, so game starts, and that was like a true moment when, like, I knew Duke was the better team. I knew Duke more talented at every position, and I'm like, there's not one player that would start for Carolina or start for Duke that's on Carolina's roster. Maybe Armando Bacot, but Mark Williams was just as good, and I think the fit's better with Paolo. So the game starts, and like, it's like Mark Titus said this on his podcast, and it's like when in elementary school when you had to guard with the person you were like what wristband you had on. Like if you had a red wristband, you had to guard the guy with the red wristband. It's like when they lined up and the game started, I was like, holy shit, we are so like we don't have a guy that can hold them. Like Caleb Love and RJ Davis over Wendell Moore, AJ Griffin. Like, nope. Mark Williams, Armando Bacot, sure. Paolo against Leaky Black, like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I mean, it was just so the game tipped, and immediately, like, Hubert Davis puts Armando Bacot on Paolo Banchero, right? So Leaky Black is the guy that is a great defender, and by statistics and all this year, he's guarded the best player and kind of held them in check. So we put Bacot on Banchero and immediately picks up 2 fouls 4 minutes into the game. So our best offensive player out of the game immediately. Just questionable coaching decisions. Duke just punches in the mouth. Banchero was great. AJ Griffin we texted about this a few weeks back. I said I'm ready to have the conversation about Griffin being the best prospect long term on this team. I think his game translates so well. He's so smooth. It looks like he's moving in slow motion with the ball when he has it. Just gets to his spots, can elevate, finish over defenders. He's fantastic. But the effort, the biggest thing for me is I don't mind a loss. Like, right, like it's a rivalry game, you would love to get cheered. But getting ran out of the gym for the 8th time is kind of just like at the point where I'm at now, where it's like, hey man, like this team just sucks, and like it is what it is. Like I'm gonna root for him, I'm gonna watch him, but like I have zero, and I mean zero expectations moving forward. Like I'm so tired of watching Caleb Love drive in the middle of the lane and panic and throw the ball into the 4th row in the stands and nothing happens for it, right? Like if you don't develop a bench like Hubert Davis has done this year, there's no accountability that's on the court. You can call a timeout, you can get the guys in the huddle, and you can say, okay, like, hey, we need to stop doing this and we need to start doing this. But if they're not executing on the court and you're not pulling them out of the game and putting somebody in who will do that, then what you're saying is just going in one ear and going out the other, right? Like it's pretty simple, like steps that what you do. And my frustrations, and as long as many Carolina fans are there, the people who are saying fire Hubert Davis are irrational, right? Like, you fire Hubert Davis after year one, that's a black mark on the program, and like,
yeah, it's not
good
luck.
luck. Good luck getting anybody that'll come in there, because, right? I just think it boils down to like the elite talent that Duke has and any other blue bloods have. Look at Kentucky, look at Gonzaga, look at Michigan. Carolina just hasn't got those guys. And you can say what you want if you're a fan of college basketball about, oh, these kids are getting paid and yada yada, cheating and all that shit. Carolina's doing it. Every school's doing it. We're just missing on who we're going after in recruiting, right? Like, I don't know if the elite talent just hasn't came to Carolina in the last couple of years, and it's tough. I'm very frustrated. Looking back, so the 2020 year, Cole Anthony comes. They bring Christian Keeling and Brandon and Justin Pearson. Keeling came from Georgia Southern. Justin Pierce came from William and Mary. Two guys that are not ACC level basketball players. No disrespect to them, just wasn't a good fit. Cole Anthony gets hurt, comes back after a knee injury, plays, doesn't have to, right? Like, comes back and plays because he wants to play for the university, plays his heart out, gets drafted. The year after that, like Garrison Brooks, love him, not a North Carolina, like, I don't know, Brandon Robinson. I could go on and on, right? And I'm not trying to diminish these kids, but there's just been misses on the staff, and who they've prioritized in recruiting haven't turned out on the court. And I think Caleb Love is fine. I think RJ Davis is solid, but I just think this team just doesn't have it. They don't have a fight. They don't have team unity. They're all selfish, and that's unfortunately where we're at. But thank God for Brady Manick, because he was the only bright spot for Carolina in this game. Played his ass off. Was like 6-11 from three. Played pretty much 30 minutes. But my frustration with this team is that they don't play as a team, and they're 7 deep. Dawson Garcia dealing with a death in his family. He's not coming back to Carolina. All the signs are, he's been back in Minnesota for 2.5 weeks. So all signs seem like him kind of just sitting out the rest of the year, then getting a medical red shirt, playing elsewhere. Anthony Harris ineligible after the first semester. Like, that's not a good look for your first year head coach, that you get a kid that's ineligible halfway through the first year, right? And it's not on the coach to go to class, but you should have people in place to make sure your guys are going to class and taking care of business, right? So my last thing on Carolina, then we'll kind of switch to Duke here, but I'm very frustrated. We're kind of at that point now where we texted and I was like, hey man, like, this team just is what it is. I still think they get in the tournament. I think long-term for them to make the tournament, they have to just take care of business, win against Virginia Tech, win against Florida State, win against Louisville. The game at Cameron Indoor, the last game of the year, is going to be a bloodbath. Like, there's a 0% chance they win that game. So just go in and make Duke your only loss, win a game in the ACC tournament, get a 10 seed, get blown out by a 7 seed. I don't give a shit, and let's just go on to next year. It's kind of where I'm at. So
nice.
Yeah. And then we'll switch gears to Duke here, as much as this is going to pain me to talk about them. But I think this team up there with Kentucky, up there with Gonzaga, up there with Houston, up there with all these teams that can win a national championship, that kind of remind me of the 2019 Duke team with Zion, RJ, and Cam, although they're not as dominant and as flashy as that team was. But I think Paolo's phenomenal. Mark Williams is an underrated guy. His offensive rebounding, his finishing through contact. And AJ Griffin, I could talk the world about that kid. I think he is so good, and I think he's going to be so good for a long time. So kind of want to give you a few minutes. I just rambled there for a few minutes. You can start with UNC, what you think, and then kind of get to Duke here.
I just think it's a transition year. It happens. I know I know Roy's last 2 years, they weren't the best team, but it is like, putting new, even though Hubert Davis was on staff, it's still him putting his own mark on the franchise, on the organization franchise.
Mhm.
Wow, too much NBA.
Right.
But yeah, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be okay. I think it's just going to take a year or two. It's just, they're North Carolina. They'll land on their feet. On the Duke end, I'm with you. I just think they're so talented. They're so deep. We say this, they'll probably lose to Virginia tomorrow, because that's always how it goes when we talk highly of a team. But, you mentioned that Zion, how they kind of compare you to that Zion, Cam, RJ team. This team's deeper than that, because that team was just like those three, and that was it. You look at guys like, Theo John coming off the bench for them, playing decent minutes, which is weird. Trevor Keels, Wendell Moore, Jamie Roach, Mark Williams, like you mentioned. Basically, everyone that plays is contributing to this team. So it just kind of really shows you like this depth level there. I guess if you had to give me like 6 teams I think could win the title, I would have them on the list, but they would probably be 6 for me if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I think their outside shooting is something that will cost them in the tournament, right? Like,
I do too.
other than Keels was hot early in the year, Joey Baker's not really a guy that they're going to put in and shoot. Paolo's really kind of a guy that when he has a smaller guy, he just takes him down low. When he has a bigger guy, he kind of floats around the perimeter. But they don't really have a guy that can consistently knock down shots, and that's kind of their biggest red mark. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to have the best player on the court,
Right.
and sometimes that works. So it's kind of where I'm
Yeah,
at with them. But
I am
staying
too.
in the ACC real quick, your Irish have been just on fire, right? They've kind of solidified themselves as a top 4 team in the ACC. I think they get in the tournament. Once again, the ACC is really bad. Teams suck, but there are 68 teams that make the tournament, man. Like, they're not going to be 17 teams from the Mountain West and 6 teams from the WCC. They're going to put ACC schools in because that means money, and that's just the way the tournament goes.
Yeah, I like this team. We've talked about Blake Wesley a lot this year. Dane Goodwin's been really good for them. He's been their leading scorer. Paul Atkinson, as a senior, has played really well. Prentice Hub is picking it up of late. But yeah, they got Louisville on Wednesday at home. So I suspect that they'll win that game just because I don't know if Louisville's kind of in a little bit of a rough stretch.
Yeah. We're
But
at that
really,
point now where they've lost 3 in a row now after the interim coach has taken over, and players are starting to realize where they're going to be playing next year. So they're giving up.
Really, like the rest of the year, they've got regular season wise, they got at Wake Forest. That'll be a tough game. And they got at Florida State. But really, I mean, everything else is pretty winnable. Clemson, Boston College, Syracuse, Georgia Tech, Pitt.
Yeah, take care of business, right? And just
you're not going to go undefeated,
right?
But you win majority of those, like
you'll sneak in. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. We kind of touched on this previous weekend, and then we can kind of touch on what games are coming up this week. I know we'll probably record sometime early next week and recap kind of what happens here, but I've got it pulled up here. Big Monday tomorrow night. Starts with Virginia, kind of a fringe bubble team. Need a lot to go right for them to get in the tournament. They are heading to Cameron to take on Duke. I don't see a world where Virginia can even hang with them. Maybe they slow it down, make it ugly, but Virginia has been pretty bad defensively this year, and I don't think they have a guy that can score. So Virginia plays Duke. Tomorrow night also, you get Kansas at Texas.
12-point spread.
Is it 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It could be a massive letdown spot after beating Carolina, right? You kind of get hyped.
Yeah, that could be a hangover, but
a win, but like an 8-point win that you never really in doubt. But then tomorrow at 9, you get Kansas going to Texas, a big game for Chris Beard and the Longhorns. Can really get over a hump after their best win's probably Tennessee at home. But big game for them. I think that'll be a good spot. I'm not sure exactly where I lean yet, but I'll probably lean under because Chris Beard's team is just beat the shit out of you defensively, and they cannot score. So be very excited to see Kansas respond after a big win. Baylor, another letdown spot after beating Baylor. They could kind of lay an egg here. But that's kind of it for Monday. Good game. We'll kind of just get to Tuesday and maybe touch on Saturday games. But Tuesday night, you have Marquette and UConn at 6:30. That'll be a good game for Big East.
That'll be a really good game. Marquette has not played. I just looked at this. So the last time they played was on the 2nd. They played Villanova. So that's weird that they didn't have a weekend game. They didn't have like a.
I think every conference team has that. I think they play they'll play like 1 or 2 games during the week and then not have a weekend game and then pick up the next week. But maybe it's because of COVID rescheduling, because Carolina had a 3-game in 1 week thing. And I know UC has that in a couple weeks, right? They play Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So you could see that for Marquette. But Tuesday night, you get Marquette, UConn, LSU at A&M, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Auburn at Arkansas, Iowa State, West Virginia, Villanova, St. John's, Illinois at Purdue, which will be a great game because I think Illinois ranked 18th is crazy. I think they're one of the 8 to 10 teams that go win the national title.
Again, how did UC beat that team? How did the Bearcats somehow? I understand it was on a neutral site, but how the hell did Cincinnati beat Illinois? By
Kofi.
20. By 20
with Kofi.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wednesday, kind of a lighter slate. Louisville, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Rutgers, Houston, SMU,
Xavier Seton
Hall, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Texas Tech, Oklahoma. Xavier Seton Hall. Sorry, I skipped right over that. And then let's go to Saturday. Sorry. Saturday is the big days. Texas, Baylor at noon.
Be fun.
Villanova, Seton Hall, Oklahoma, Kansas, West Virginia, Oklahoma State. A lot of good games. Kentucky, Florida, Duke, Boston College. I don't know why.
Memphis, Houston.
Memphis, Houston, Ohio State, Michigan.
That was a joke.
Memphis, Houston. But North Carolina, Florida State. A lot of good games. We're at that point now where you're kind of figuring out who's good, who's not, who's solidified their tournament record. But a lot of good games this week. Sunday's the big day, not college basketball. I know it's a college basketball podcast, but there's one thing on my mind this week, and it's the Cincinnati Bengals will break the curse and hoist the Lombardi Trophy. Joey B lead the Bengals to the Super Bowl. That's where I'm at.
I've already said if they do win, I will be downtown.
Oh yeah, I'm watching the game downtown. Don't know where at yet. If you have any suggestions, please slide into the DMs. Let me know where to watch a game. But
yeah,
I've also decided my company, we are work from home through the end of February. If they win, I'm going in the office today that the parade is, and I'm heading downtown exactly to enjoy with the parade. But we'll close it out here with this, our All-American of the week. It could be a game from last week, could be a game from this week. Kind of want to see where you're at. Mine's easy. It came from Saturday. It's not somebody on North Carolina's team. It is the opposite. It is AJ Griffin from Duke. I think he was phenomenal. 23 points. Just absolutely beat the shit out of Carolina. Abused Brady Manick on the defensive end. He was fantastic. I love where he's at. Duke team, very good moving forward. Carolina in shambles. But AJ Griffin's my All-American of the week. What about you? For the last 2
I'm going to go with the guy we saw tonight. I'm going Fabian White Jr. He was unbelievable tonight. Mm-hmm. He was so good.
Best player on the court by a wide margin.
Yeah, it wasn't close. He was incredible. So yeah, I'll go with that. I think that he's the best player on a Houston team that's really good. Mm-hmm. So hard to kind of skip over him from what he played tonight. But I'm excited for this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. So everyone, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the week. Like we said, we got the Super Bowl coming up, and we got trade deadline week in basketball. So lots of NBA news to talk about there. Caris LeVert to the Cavs. Love that trade. Love it.
Yeah, I especially for what they gave up, right? Ricky Rubio and some first-round picks.
Ricky Rubio's hurt for the year, so it's just an expiring contract. So
right. We'll worry about that in the future. Yep. But like Tim said, big week college basketball. Myself, Isaiah Jackson, Alex Tolby giving you daily betting, I would say advice, picks, kind of fade us, right us. Sometimes we're hot, sometimes we're cold. It's all about having fun, kind of giving out our picks there. As we get closer to the tournament, we can start breaking down some bubble teams, once bracketology gets out. But very excited. Hopefully have something for you guys for the NCAA tournament show. As always, Selection Sunday, we'll crank some stuff out for you guys. But we're very excited. Enjoy the week of hoops. If you're a Kentucky fan, Duke fan, you're living large. If you're a Carolina and Xavier fan, it'll get better. I promise.
It will.
Maybe it won't. Maybe it won't. Bengals might win the Super Bowl, though. That's all that matters. So.
Yep. See you guys.
See ya.